Sometimes we dungeon masters just need a big, mean bruiser that can crush a party of adventurers. In this video, I will cover 5 of my favorites. Hi everyone, my name is Nate and you are watching WASD20, a channel about tabletop RPGs and fantasy maps. In today's video, I want to give you some pretty good detailed information on 5 big bruisers for your D&D 5e game. I will also be giving you some story hooks and adventure ideas for each of these monsters, so feel free to steal those and use them at your own table. Now, I'm starting with Big Bruisers because they're classic boss monsters, and as a DM, I just love them. Still, I hope to do more of these videos in the future and cover some other categories, like some of the creepiest monsters, some of the outright strangest monsters, or some of the most cerebral masterminds. But in this one, monsters that smash things. My 5 choices might seem somewhat arbitrary. There were a lot to choose from, but I'm trying to select A, monsters that I really like to use, B, monsters that have a bit of variety in the types of creatures they are or the environments you find them in, and C, I'm trying to have a variety of challenge ratings. We'll be starting with a fairly low challenge rating and slowly working our way up to some huge and really tough creatures. First up, a true classic and one of my personal favorites for a good low-level dungeon boss, the Ogre, the stereotypical big dumb brute. At 9 to 10 feet tall and nearly 1,000 pounds, it's a wonder these creatures are a challenge rating of only 2. But though they have size and strength, they really don't have much else. I love role-playing an ogre because they're dumb, they're gluttonous, and they're prone to fits of rage at the slightest insult. So maybe I have a twisted idea of fun, I don't know. I also love seeing the creative ways players can outsmart an ogre, but beware, because if there's too much talky talk, the ogre loses patience and starts to smash! The Great Club standard attack does 2d8 plus 4 damage in 5e, potentially enough to knock out a first or second level character in one hit. Now, I'm often homebrewing stats and tweaking things at will, but in this case, Mordenkainen and Soma Foes actually has some really cool variations for us too. In this book, you'll see the Ogre Battering Ram, the Ogre Bolt Launcher, the Ogre Chain Brute, and lastly, my personal favorite, the Ogre Howdah, which only has a CR of 2, but it can carry up to 4 small humanoids on its back. Think goblins with arrows and spears. For our Ogre adventure hook, imagine a party of 3 hunters has gone missing. Their summer cabin in the north, which served as a small hunting lodge, was the perfect spot for an ogre, who took up residence several months ago. When the hunters arrived, they met a gruesome end, and only a whining and bloodied hound made it back to town. Our adventurers have agreed to investigate, and when they arrive, they find a mess of body parts and a heavily modified doorway that can now fit a much larger creature. Now, if you want to have more than one encounter, try spicing it up with a few wolves who have been scavenging in the ogre's wake that attack the player characters. Or you could include a couple goblins, or perhaps there's another ogre that happens to be out fetching water from the river when the players arrive, but comes back midway through the combat. Now, with ogres, you can get as gruesome as you feel you're comfortable with, and if you don't know your group very well yet, be a bit more cautious. Ogres eat smaller creatures. They're macabre, and they're not afraid of displaying their trophies of their victims. So if you think your group can handle it, go nuts with all of that and really drive home the brutal nature of these things. Honorable mention in the low-level range here goes to bugbears, giant constrictor snakes, minotaurs, and yeti. Before we move on to the next monster, I'd like to thank my sponsor for this video, Tactical Adventures, who is currently running a Kickstarter for a turn-based computer role-playing game called Solasta, Crown of the Magister. Fans of D&D 5th edition will be thrilled to hear that this game uses the 5th edition SRD, so the rules, the mechanics, and spells and all that will immediately feel familiar. The game will feature a rich single-player campaign in a really cool custom setting, and they have a playable demo available right now on Steam, and it's free. I was really impressed with it, and I found it unique in the sense of verticality it provides as you keep delving deeper and deeper into the dungeon. I also really liked the way the game uses light and darkness, and overall I think they've really captured the unique feeling of a tabletop D&D game. So go over to their Kickstarter page right now using the link in the video description and check it out. At time of release there are only 3 days left to back, so don't miss out. Thanks Tactical Adventures. Alright, our next Big Bruiser is quite different from the last. Coming in at a challenge rating of 5, we have the Shambling Mound. This is a terrifying creature made up entirely of rotting and continuously consuming plant matter. The theory is that they're somehow created when lightning strikes a swamp plant. These organic masses are resistant to cold and fire damage, and lightning damage actually heals it. A Shambling Mound has an armor class of 15 and 136 hit points. Its slam attack is the same as the Ogre's 2d8 plus 4, but it gets 2 of these attacks. And if both hit the same medium or smaller creature, it can engulf them, meaning it takes them in and they become totally entangled in the Shambler. Pretty cool. Shambling Mounds are very skilled at lying in wait, blending in with nature and lashing out when foes come close enough. For our Shambling Mound adventure hook, a priestess sends the party to a ruined jungle temple to see if there are any inscriptions that can help fill in the missing pieces of an old prayer she's been working to recover. The temple's ruined stone structure is nearly completely swallowed up in lush vegetation, the perfect place for a Shambling Mound. The structure is unusually quiet, almost like the local wildlife are afraid of the place. But will the unsuspecting players be able to notice what's wrong before they're attacked? If you need a little extra encounter here, what if some bullywugs have a camp nearby? The players might choose to attack the bullywugs, but if they don't, what if the bullywugs actually help them find the temple, smiling and guarding the secret of what lies in wait? Honorable mention in the CR5 range, there are a whole bunch that I considered here. Balgura, Boulette, Earth Elementals, Ettins, Flesh Golems, Hill Giants, Mammoths, Odiugs, Trolls. So yeah, there are definitely a lot of Big Bruisers at that CR5 range. Next, coming in at a challenge rating of 8, the Frost Giant. Giants of all kinds work great as Big Bruisers, and there's a pretty wide variety in the giant category, so there's a lot you can do. The various races of giants are very old, as evidenced by the fact that they warred against the dragons when the dragons were still young. They've fallen from prominence and tend to live in isolated tribes or clans on the fringes of civilization or deep in the wilds. Giants are ruled by a hierarchical structure known as the Ordning, which places storm giants at the top, hill giants at the bottom, frost giants, and the others somewhere in between. The other types of giants would be fire, stone, and cloud giants. But let's talk specifically about frost giants, a skilled warrior class from the coldest reaches of the world. Standing tall at an average of 21 feet, frost giants don't have the time or patience for much unless it's related to strength and skill in battle. Their strength in the Ordning is best demonstrated through their musculature and the trophies they've crafted from the remains of their enemies to prove their battle prowess. The most respected trophies would be dragon scales or dragon teeth. Frost giants might value skills in leatherwork and carving, but other than that, they mostly just scavenge or steal what they need. Even crafting armor from the shields of smaller foes, or maybe lashing a human-sized sword to a large wooden haft to make a spear. Stat-wise, frost giants have an armor class of 16, 138 hit points, and can make 2 great axe attacks of 3d12 plus 6 each. If you're looking for something a little stronger, try the Frost Giant Everlasting one, also in the Monster Manual, which comes in at a challenge rating of 12. For our Frost Giant adventure idea, perhaps our party finds shelter in the snowy northern keep of Brimhall as a blizzard bears down. But an even worse forecast begins to spread throughout the town. Frost giants, 2 or 3 of them, recently decimated a smaller village nearby and are rumored to be headed this way, no doubt eager to raid the armory and plunder anything else they can use. The PCs now have to help the ragtag, underfed soldiers prepare for a siege by frost giants. A couple honorable mentions in the CR7 to CR9 range: tree ants, giant apes, abominable yeti, stone giant, and shield guardians. Next up, taking us to a challenge rating of 10, a personal favorite of mine, the stone golem. Golems must be carefully constructed by someone with the knowledge of the complex process. That probably would require a manual of golems, and the process always involves first the actual physical body construction. Then, to give it life, the creator must infuse the body with a spirit from the elemental plane of Earth. But this spark of life has no memory or will of its own. It simply obeys its master. Control of the golem can be transferred if the creator makes an amulet or some other small object that can be passed on to others. In addition to stone golems, there are clay, flesh, and iron golems, but feel free to get a little creative and make up your own materials too. For the stone golem, the thing I love is they can come in so many shapes. It could be a traditional kind of monolithic statue, or it could be a large stone spider or a lion or some other beast. I also take big liberties in adjusting the stats based on the size, shape, speed, etc. So really feel free to tweak this one and play around with it. In the monster manual, the stone golem has an AC of 17 and 178 hit points. But the most challenging part is all of its damage immunities, condition immunities, its magical resistance. It's just a really tough one to damage. For actions, the stone golem gets 2 slam attacks, dealing 3d8 plus 6 each, and also has the magical ability to slow its target just by looking at it. To resist this requires a DC 17 wisdom save. For the stone golem adventure hook, the party has finally reached the burial chamber in the huge labyrinthine tomb of the Emperor Aronix, narrowly escaping ingenious traps set to prevent anyone from reaching the final resting place. The prized gem sits on a dusty pedestal behind the sarcophagus. Both the rogue and wizard can detect no traps, so they slowly remove the gem. But as they do, the stone figure on the tomb itself emits a dull scraping noise as it stands up behind the party, blocking their exit. Honorable mention in the CR 10 to 13 range goes to Dow, Froghemoth, and Storm Giants. For our final Big Bruiser, let's talk about the Dragon Turtle at a challenge rating of 17. For some reason, dragons didn't come to mind for me as Big Bruisers, but I've always loved the art of this Dragon Turtle, and when it comes to a bruiser of the sea, this seemed like a pretty good choice. Dragon turtles are actually a lot like dragons, as they are quite intelligent and they do go after treasure to bring back to their lair in caves, in this case beneath the sea. In fact, sea travelers often resort to bribing dragon turtles with treasure to let them pass safely. And clever creatures might even try to pay them to attack their foes, so, you know, dragon turtle mercenaries. Stat-wise, the dragon turtle has an AC of 20 and 341 hit points. It can make 3 attacks, and options include bite, claw, or tail attacks. In addition, it has a steam breath that goes in a 60 feet cone, and it can burn its victims even underwater. For an adventure hook, a dragon turtle has been spotted, and 2 ships have gone missing recently. The cities of Inshar rely on trade by sea, and our party has been tasked with neutralizing the threat. Their first step is to gather information and perhaps offer an alliance with the merfolk of the region against the new threat. But will the dragon turtle find them first? They've brought a large amount of treasure as a potential bribe, just in case. Well guys, the options for Big Bruisers really thin out around level 12, but a couple honorable mentions here. At a CR of 20, you've got the Pit Fiend. At a CR of 30, you've got the Tarrasque, which you might not consider a Big Bruiser because it's just really like a otherworldly city destroyer, but now if you have Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, how about any of the Demon Lords? They're almost all big, strong, scary things that have CRs in the mid-20s, so go nuts and have fun with those. But hey, how about you? What are some of your favorites? What are some that didn't make my list that you definitely have on your own? If you try out any of the adventure ideas, I'd love to hear about it as well. Let me know how it goes. Now before we go, I want to thank my patrons so much for their support of this channel. Patrons are people who give to WASD 20 on a monthly basis. They are the lifeblood of the channel here, and I couldn't do it without them. So thank you, patrons. If you want to join with them, there are also some pretty cool rewards, and you can go check it all out over at patreon.com/WASD20. The next video in the series will probably be something about the creepiest monsters in D&D 5e because Halloween is right around the corner. Thanks once again to Tactical Adventures. Make sure you go check out that game, folks. Only 3 days left to back. Go play the demo. You won't regret it. And yeah, that's going to do it for this one, everybody. Thanks so much for joining me. Everybody take care. You'll see me again very soon.